Echo 7.
83. That is the number scratched into a wooden sign at Hanakapiai Beach. Each mark is a body. Each tally is someone who went into that water and never came out. 83 souls pulled under while paradise watched from the cliffs above. But locals stopped updating the sign years ago. The real count passed 100 long before the wood started to rot. The state of Hawaii knows this. They know people keep dying at this beach. Their solution was to put up a sign that counts the dead. They are still counting. That tells you everything you need to know about Kauai. In 2025 alone, there were 71 helicopter rescues on the Kalalau Trail. 71 times emergency crews had to fly into that wilderness and pull someone out. Helicopter costs exceeded $250,000 for the year. And those are just the rescues. The successful ones. The people who made it out. What about the people who did not make it out? What about the ones no helicopter could reach? What about the ones who vanished before anyone knew they were in trouble? In April of 2025, approximately 50 hikers were stranded overnight on the Kalalau Trail when Hanakapiai Stream flooded without warning. One hiker later described turning around at the waterfall and stepping back into the water to make the crossing when he looked upstream and saw a wall of water coming down. They huddled together through the night, waiting for water levels to drop. These were the lucky ones. They survived because they stayed together. They survived because the water eventually receded. They survived because morning came. But the valleys have taken others who were not so lucky. This island holds secrets that go back 5 million years. The Hawaiians knew some of them. They passed down warnings through generations. They told stories about places where the land itself could take you. We forgot those stories. The disappearances never stopped. You found Echo 7, and this is Kauai, the Garden Isle, the oldest of the Hawaiian Islands, the most beautiful, they say, the most remote, the most dangerous. 163 people have vanished on this island since 1952. Not died, vanished. Their bodies never found. No remains, no belongings, nothing. 163 people who walked into the mountains or the valleys or the trails and simply ceased to exist. I submitted Freedom of Information Act requests to the Hawaii Department of Land and Natural Resources, the Kauai Police Department, and the National Park Service. I wanted search records, incident reports, internal memoranda. I wanted to understand what happens when someone disappears on this island and whether the officials understand it any better than we do. What I received back tells its own story. Significant portions were redacted. Entire paragraphs blacked out. Names removed. Locations obscured. Internal communications marked not for public release. But what remained was enough. Enough to see patterns. Enough to identify clusters. Enough to know that something is happening on Kauai that defies simple explanation. It matches only one thing. The stories the ancient Hawaiians told about this island. The warnings they gave. The places they said to avoid. We forgot those warnings. The disappearances never stopped. Let me tell you about the island. Kauai sits at the northwest end of the Hawaiian archipelago. It is the oldest of the main islands, formed by a single massive volcano that erupted from the ocean floor 5 million years ago. 5 million years of rain and wind and wave have shaped it into something unlike anywhere else on Earth. The island is small, 25 miles across at its widest point. You could drive around the entire coastline in a few hours if the road went all the way around. It does not. The northwest coast of Kauai is called Napali. In Hawaiian, Napali means the cliffs, and these cliffs are beyond description. 17 miles of vertical walls rising 4,000 feet straight from the ocean. Green velvet ridges separated by valleys so deep they have never been fully explored. Waterfalls that drop thousands of feet into jungle so thick you cannot see the ground. There is no road through Napali. No road has ever existed. The terrain is too vertical, too unstable, too savage. Engineers have tried. In the 1950s, they attempted to build a road from Haiena to the town of Polihale on the western shore. The proposed route led through the Alakai Swamp on the western slope of Mount Waialeale. The ground was so saturated with rainwater that it mired both workers and machinery. They got less than 2 miles before they gave up. The mountains defeated them. Today, hiking trails follow the general path of that proposed road. The Pihea Trail and the Alakai Swamp Trail are built on raised boardwalks above the swamp. Without those boardwalks, access by foot through the swamp would be nearly impossible. But people still try. The only way into Napali is by sea, by air, or on foot. The trail is called Kalalau, 11 miles of the most dangerous hiking in America. It starts at the end of the road in Hyanna and winds along the cliffs, crossing streams, climbing ridges, descending into valleys where the vegetation swallows the path. Every year, thousands of hikers walk the Kalalau Trail. Every few years, some of them do not come back. But before I tell you about the trail, I need to tell you about the mountain. Mount Waialeale sits at the center of Kauai, like a heart of stone and water. It rises 5,148 feet above sea level, making it the second highest point on the island after nearby Kauai. But height is not what makes Waialeale significant. It is the rain. 450 inches per year, nearly 40 feet of rain. The Guinness Book of World Records has cited it as one of the wettest spots on Earth. Only a few places in India and Colombia receive comparable precipitation. In 1982, the mountain recorded 666 inches, 55 feet of water falling from the sky in a single year. That is more than twice the annual rainfall of the Amazon. The rain never stops. The clouds never lift. The summit is perpetually hidden, perpetually wet, perpetually inaccessible. Shrouded in mist year-round, Waialeale has been called the Weeping Wall because the constant rain flows down its vertical cliffs in thousands of temporary waterfalls. The Hawaiians called it Waialeale, rippling water, overflowing water. They understood what this place was, a machine for generating rain built into the heart of their island, the source of all the rivers, all the streams, all the waterfalls that cascade down its flanks. They also understood that it was sacred. Ancient Hawaiians climbed to the summit of Waialeale to make offerings to Kane, one of the 4 major Hawaiian gods. Remains of a heiau, a place of worship constructed from rocks, have been found at the summit. Getting there must have required extraordinary determination and spiritual purpose. The terrain is nearly impassable, even with modern equipment, but they made the journey, and they left something behind. The water from Waialeale carved Waimea Canyon, the Grand Canyon of the Pacific. 14 miles long, 1 mile wide at its widest point, 3,600 feet deep at its deepest. The canyon is painted in reds and oranges and greens that shift with every change in light. The oxidized iron in the volcanic rock creates the distinctive rust colors that earned the canyon its name. Waimea in Hawaiian means reddish water. The geology is complex. Unlike the Grand Canyon of Arizona, which was carved through sedimentary rock over millions of years, Waimea Canyon cuts through basaltic lava flows. Roughly 4 million years ago, while Kauai was still erupting almost continuously, a portion of the island collapsed. This catastrophic collapse formed a depression that then filled with lava flows. The Waimea River, fed by the eternal rain of Mount Waialeale, has been eroding this depression ever since. The canyon walls reveal layers of volcanic history. The deepest, oldest layers near the floor are dark basalt from ancient eruptions. Moving upward, the rock transitions through layers of red and orange oxidized basalt, yellow volcanic ash deposits, and near the rim, younger, darker lava. You can read the island's history in those walls if you know how to look. The water carved the Napali cliffs, millions of years of rain cutting through volcanic rock, creating the impossible geometry of ridges and valleys that define the coast. And the water carved something else. There are places on Kauai that the rain has been working on for 5 million years. Places where erosion has created terrain so complex, so unstable, so utterly hostile to human presence, that even modern technology cannot map them completely. The box canyons, the hanging valleys, the places where the ridges narrow to knife edges with 1,000-foot drops on either side, the places where vegetation grows so thick that you can be standing on nothing solid without knowing it until you fall through. Search and rescue teams have given up in some of these places. Helicopters cannot land. Hikers cannot navigate. The ground itself shifts and crumbles and swallows anything that enters. The ancient Hawaiians knew about these places. They had names for them. They had warnings. They told stories about the mana of certain locations. Mana is spiritual power. Everything in the Hawaiian world had mana. People, objects, animals, places. Chiefs and priests had the most mana. People could gain or lose mana through their actions, battles, and the respect they received. Some places had so much mana that humans could not safely enter without proper preparation or permission. The Hawaiians believed that certain valleys, certain ridges, certain pools of water were home to spirits called kupua. These spirits could be benevolent or malicious. They could help travelers or destroy them. They could take human form or animal form, or forms that had no name. One scholar described kupua as monsters having the power of appearing in different kinds of bodies. Most were cruel and vindictive, ready to destroy and devour any persons they could catch. But some were protectors of their families, watching over their descendants. In Kauai specifically, there was a kupua called Aqua Pehuale, which translates to God of the swollen billow. This spirit was greatly feared and hated, even by his own tribe. He devoured his enemies. The stories do not say what happened to those who encountered him unprepared. The mo'o were dragon spirits who guarded pools and streams. They could change forms from small geckos to giant dragons. They had supernatural powers to control the weather, ensuring the islands had plentiful water and fruitful harvests. If angered, they could whip up killer waves or sweep targets of their wrath off steep cliffs to their deaths. The protocol was specific. If you are at one of Hawaii's natural pools, drop a flower or branch in the water before entering. If the branch or flower gets swept away, the mo'o do not want to be disturbed. Go elsewhere. How many hikers follow this protocol today? How many even know about it? The night marchers were spirits of ancient Hawaiian warriors who traveled the old paths after dark. They supposedly roam large sections of the island chain and can be seen by groups of torches. They usually appear in areas that were once battlefields or sacred sites. If you encounter the night marchers, you must lie face down on the ground. Keep your eyes to the ground. Stay quiet. Breathe shallowly. Do not move. If you look a night marcher in the eye, you will be forced to walk among them for eternity. These are not stories I invented. These are stories that have been passed down for more than 1,000 years. The Hawaiians believed them. They lived by them. They survived by them. And there were places that belonged to no named spirit, places that simply swallowed people. The Hawaiians called these places kapu, forbidden, sacred, off-limits. Such spirits are believed to be malicious and to take delight in leading travelers astray, one source explains. Hence the wild places which they haunt on each island are feared and avoided. On Kauai, one such place was called Mana on the western shore. Mana, the same word as spiritual power, a place so charged with supernatural energy that it was named for the concept itself. We do not stay away. 4 million tourists visit Kauai every year. They hike the trails. They swim in the pools. They camp in the valleys. Most of them know nothing about the old warnings. They do not believe in mana or spirits or forbidden places. But the places do not care what tourists believe. Let me tell you about Jesse Pinegar. In January of 2008, Jesse Glenn Pinegar flew to Kauai from Utah. He was 23 years old, an experienced hiker and camper. He had been to Kauai before. He loved the trails. His sister later said he had hiked the Kalalau Trail several times before he disappeared. Jesse rented an apartment on the island. He told his family he would be back in a few months. He was going to hike, to explore, to spend time in the mountains he loved. His father began searching for him in March. Jesse had not contacted anyone. He had not returned. He had simply gone silent. Jesse's father flew to Kauai. He found his son's apartment clean and well kept, nothing out of place. Everything looked normal. There was no sign of struggle, no indication that anything was wrong. Except Jesse was not there, and no one had seen him for weeks. His father put up flyers. He offered a $5,000 reward. He talked to everyone who might have seen Jesse. He walked the trails his son had walked. He found nothing. Months later, a hiker on the Kalalau trail reported something strange. About 5 miles into the trail, set off by itself near a cliff, was an abandoned campsite. The campsite felt wrong. The hiker could not explain why, but something about the way it was arranged, the way it sat isolated at the edge of a drop, made him uncomfortable. A hiker just got this weird feeling, like this does not look right, Jesse's sister, Nikki Michaelis, later told a reporter. And so he reported it. Rangers investigated. They found gear that matched what Jesse had been carrying. Personal items, including an iPod. Evidence that someone had been living there. But no Jesse. Jesse Pinegar was never found. 18 years later, his case remains open. His campsite sat at the edge of a cliff for months before anyone noticed it. His belongings were recovered. His body was not. His sister has said that actively talking about him just makes the family feel like he is not forgotten, because it feels like he disappeared and the world wanted to just forget. They were fighting just to say, there is this person out there who is missing, and nobody wanted to help unless they paid them. Where did Jesse go? He knew the trail. He had the equipment. He had hiked Kalalau multiple times. What happened between his campsite and wherever his body ended up? I do not know. The island keeps its secrets. Jesse was not the first. He was not the last. In 2005, a man named Daniel Marks vanished in the Kalalau Valley. Daniel was 24 years old. He had arrived on Kauai from San Francisco just days before he disappeared. He spent one night at a hostel, then got a ride to the trailhead. He was last seen by 2 tourists on November 10th, 2005. They said Daniel seemed to know what he was doing, but they noted that it was very late in the day to attempt what he was attempting. The cliffs in Kalalau can be 4,000 feet high and up to 90 degrees vertical. Daniel was heading down, alone. He never came back. Search teams found nothing. Police found no leads. The case went cold. Then, much later, a pack believed to belong to Daniel was found in Koki State Park, miles from where he was last seen, miles from where he should have been. How did his pack get there? Did Daniel walk there? Did someone else carry it? Did it fall from the sky? Daniel Marks has never been found. His mother, Patricia Bernard Marks, believes the disappearances could be the work of a serial killer. She has said this publicly. She said, "I do not like the fact that there are a number of young men missing who have extremely similar profiles. She is not wrong to be suspicious. The profiles are remarkably consistent. Young men, usually in their 20s, usually alone, usually experienced outdoors, usually from the mainland. The same profile over and over again in the same valleys." Let me tell you about Alex Gum. In 2018, Alex Gum flew to Kauai from Maine. He was 25 years old. He told no one he was going. He simply appeared on the island with a newly shaven head, a vow of silence, and a plan that no one understood. He spent one night at a hostel in Kapa. Then he vanished. Police discovered later that before traveling to Kauai, Alex had researched food foraging and natural water sources. He had studied how to live off the land. He had $8,000 in a bank account that he never accessed after he disappeared. He never used his cell phone again. A friend of Alex named Ian organized a search for him. Ian flew to Kauai in 2019, a year after Alex vanished. He spent weeks looking. He talked to everyone who might have seen Alex. He searched the trails and valleys. Ian later wrote about what he learned. He said Alex was obsessed with something called Lemuria. Lemuria is a mythical lost continent that some believe once existed in the Pacific Ocean. In 19th century scientific speculation, Lemuria was proposed as a land bridge to explain the distribution of lemur fossils. That scientific hypothesis has long been discredited. But in occult and New Age traditions, Lemuria persists as a supposed ancient civilization, a Pacific Atlantis. Some believers think Hawaii is the remnant of Lemuria. Some think that ancient wisdom and spiritual power are concentrated in these islands. Some think that certain locations in Hawaii are portals or vortexes that connect to other dimensions or states of consciousness. Ian wrote that Alex was absolutely obsessed with Lemuria, Pleiadians, and the Sirius star system. He was without a doubt the most knowledgeable person Ian knew about metaphysics, alchemy, Hermetic philosophy, and overall high strangeness. What is interesting to me, Ian wrote, is that I had no idea until a year after we returned that Lemuria was connected to Kauai. Alex Gum came to Kauai looking for something he had researched, something he believed was real. Maybe he found it. Alex Gum has never been found. Some believe he is still alive, living off the land in the remote valleys, maintaining his vow of silence. Others believe he walked into the wilderness and died. Others believe something else happened entirely. I do not know what Alex found in those valleys, but I know he never came back. Here is what I believe. I believe that 3 young men, all with similar profiles, all experienced in the outdoors, all traveling alone, all vanished in the same region of the same island within 13 years of each other. That is not coincidence. That is a pattern. And the pattern goes back much further than most people know. Let me tell you about the history. The Kalalau Valley has been swallowing people since before Europeans arrived in Hawaii. The ancient Hawaiians who lived there knew the risks. They built their settlements in specific locations. They avoided certain areas. They performed ceremonies before entering dangerous places. The first Western visitors to Nepali arrived in the late 1700s. Captain James Cook documented the coast in 1778, but his ships could not land there. The cliffs were too steep, the waves too violent. In the 1800s, the valley was home to several hundred Hawaiians who lived by farming and fishing. They knew every path, every stream, every danger. They had lived with those dangers for generations. They still lost people. When Western diseases swept through Hawaii in the 19th century, the population of Kalalau collapsed. By the early 1900s, the valley was essentially abandoned, but people kept going back. In the 1960s and 70s, the valley became a haven for hippies and dropouts. Young people came from the mainland to live off the grid, to build communes, to escape what they saw as the corruptions of modern society. They called it going Kalalau. Some of them stayed for years. Some of them raised children in the valley. Some of them grew marijuana in hidden gardens, starting a tradition that continues today. And some of them disappeared. The stories from that era are fragmentary. Record-keeping was minimal. People came and went without documentation. If someone vanished, there was often no official report. They were simply gone. One source suggests that reasons for disappearance can be sinister, and some of those missing have indeed later been found dead. Others, however, have seemingly managed to escape from the world here on Kauai. It is possible to live off the land on Kauai if you are resourceful enough. The climate is ideal. You can fish, hunt, and gather year-round. Some people have done it for decades. The homeless population on the island includes people who have chosen this lifestyle deliberately. But there is a difference between choosing to disappear and being taken. How many people disappeared in Kalalau during those counterculture decades? No one knows. The valley kept its secrets. In 1977, the state of Hawaii established Nepali Coast State Wilderness Park. They began requiring permits. They began counting visitors. They began keeping records. And the records show that people keep disappearing. Not every year, but regularly, consistently. A pattern that emerges from the data like a face in the clouds. Claire Weno was a missing persons investigator for the Kauai Police Department. In 2008, she gave an interview about the disappearances. She said something that has stayed with me. She said, "Lots of people come over from the mainland and head for the Kalalau Valley. I have heard Kauai is the vortex of something spiritual. People come here to find it, find themselves, find peace. They go into Kalalau Valley, and some of them do not come out. Let me tell you about the terrain. The Kalalau Trail begins at Kauai Beach, at the end of the road on Kauai's north shore. For the first 2 miles, the trail is relatively easy. It winds through tropical forest, crossing small streams, offering glimpses of the ocean through the trees. But that ease is deceptive. In 2025, a 31-year-old Wisconsin visitor suffered heat stroke and had to be airlifted out from just 1.5 miles into the trail, barely past the beginning. The tropical heat and humidity can overwhelm hikers who are not prepared, even on terrain that looks manageable. Then the trail changes. At approximately 2 miles, the trail reaches Hanakapiai Beach. This is the beach with the death sign, the one that counts bodies. Hanakapiai looks like paradise. Golden sand, clear water, dramatic cliffs on either side. But the currents there are deadly. Waves sweep in without warning. The undertow pulls swimmers out to sea. There is no lifeguard. There is no rescue equipment. If you get in trouble at Hanakapiai, you are on your own. The sign says at least 83 people have drowned there. Rangers believe the real number is higher. Many victims were never found. Their bodies pulled out to sea, never recovered. But the deaths at Hanakapiai are not mysteries. They are tragedies, but they are understandable. The ocean kills. The currents kill. The waves kill. This is explicable. What is not explicable is what happens beyond Hanakapiai. Past the beach, some hikers add the Hanakapiai Falls Trail. It is a 1.8-mile extension that adds approximately 4 hours to the hike. The trail becomes more dangerous as it meanders over rocks and through streams. The upper portion can only be done safely in good weather. At the end is a spectacular 300-foot waterfall. This is where Matthew Wu died in January of 2024. Matthew was 30 years old, a visitor from New York. By all accounts, a good hiker. He had made it past the beach and was on the trail to the falls. A woman named Rebecca was hiking behind him. She later posted about what she witnessed. She wrote, "He was in front of me for much of the trail and was young and a good hiker. He just took one wrong step on a slippery rock. It was devastating. I wanted to post this just so others really do take care when hiking this trail." Matthew fell approximately 30 feet off the trail. First responders were alerted. The Kauai Fire Department helicopter flew in. Matthew was found unconscious and bleeding from his head. Bystanders were performing CPR when rescuers arrived. He did not survive. Matthew Wu did not disappear. His body was recovered. His death was documented. It was a horrible accident, but it was an accident. But here is my question. How many Matthews have there been whose bodies were not recovered? How many hikers have fallen in places where no one was behind them to witness it? How many have slipped into ravines so thick with vegetation that their bodies simply vanished? The trail continues past Hanakapiai into increasingly difficult terrain. Past the beach, the trail climbs. It leaves the relative safety of the coast and enters terrain that has no comparison anywhere in the continental United States. The trail narrows to less than 2 feet in some places. On one side is vertical rock. On the other side is a drop of hundreds of feet to the ocean or the valley floor below. The red clay becomes slippery when wet, and in Kauai, it is almost always wet. One section of the trail is called Crawler's Ledge. The name tells you what you need to know. At Crawler's Ledge, the path is so narrow and the exposure so extreme that many hikers get down on their hands and knees to cross. Some turn back entirely. Some freeze and cannot move in either direction. This is where Zachary Rose died in August of 2014. Zachary was 28 years old. He had moved to Maui from Florida about 4 years earlier. He knew the Hawaiian trails. He knew the risks. He was hiking with a group of 5 friends. They were near mile marker 7 at Crawler's Ledge when Zachary slipped. He fell approximately 50 feet and landed on the rocks below. His friends called for help. The Coast Guard responded. They reached the group shortly after midnight. A rescue swimmer attempted CPR, but Zachary was already dead. A second male hiker in the group sustained a severe leg injury from a fall on the same trail and was transported by helicopter to a local hospital. The remaining 3 hikers were hoisted off the trail by a Kauai Fire Department helicopter. Zachary is not alone at Crawler's Ledge. Others have fallen. Some survived with injuries. Some did not survive at all. And some, the ones that interest me most, simply disappeared. Let me tell you about Samuel Martinez. In May of 2021, Samuel Joseph Martinez flew to Kauai from Nebraska. He was 23 years old, studying microbiology at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. He had permits to camp at 8 different locations around the island over nearly 2 weeks. Samuel was drawn to Kauai's biodiversity. As a microbiology student, the island's unique ecosystem must have fascinated him. The lush vegetation, the endemic species, the ancient biology of the oldest Hawaiian island. He landed on May 12th. His phone pinged near Waimea Canyon Drive around 4:40 in the afternoon. The last ping was at approximately 8:20 in the evening in the general area of Waimea and Koki State Parks. Then silence. His family reported him missing when he did not return for his flight home. Police began searching on May 30th. The search was extensive. Kauai Fire Department deployed Air 1 helicopter. Search and rescue teams covered Kukui Trail, Sugi Grove, Alakai Trail, and Kalalau Beach. ATVs drove through Waimea Valley. Searchers spoke with campers and hunters along the way. They handed out flyers and talked to everyone they encountered. They found nothing. A Waimea Big Save Market employee reported having seen Samuel, but could not provide a date and time of the sighting. GPS location and footage from his cell phone were being accessed. A woman reported seeing Samuel on May 14th in the late afternoon. It was raining heavily. He was in the Koki area. This was the last confirmed sighting. His father Ted flew to Kauai to join the search. He said Samuel was a very fit young man, so we have the utmost confidence in him to be able to survive in a climate like this. However, he was a novice hiker when you look at this type of terrain. That last sentence is crucial. Samuel was fit. He was capable. But the terrain of Kauai is different from anything on the mainland. The combination of vertical cliffs, dense vegetation, unstable soil, flash flooding, and rapidly changing weather creates hazards that mainland experience does not prepare you for. Monday, portions of Koki and Waimea state parks were searched by land and air, including trails and the top ridges of Nualolo and Maloli, areas of Kalalau Beach, campgrounds, and an unmarked trail that starts at the back of Kalalau Valley and leads up to the top of the ridge near the Kalalau Lookout were also searched. Police Assistant Chief Bryson Ponce said, "Unfortunately, we have not found any sign of Mr. Martinez throughout our searches. We also have not encountered anyone who has accurately identified him and his whereabouts." He added, "At this point, there are several possibilities that could have taken place, especially on an island with dangerous terrain in places like Waimea Canyon and Koki State Park trails, but we are still hoping for the best." They never found Samuel. A year after his disappearance, his family held a celebration of life. The obituary read, "Last May at this time, our son Samuel Martinez traveled to Kauai to spend time reading, thinking, and exploring. We last heard from him on May 13th, the day after he arrived on the island. With the help of many experts, volunteers, family, and friends, we have spent the greater part of the last year looking for him. We believe Samuel is with God now. Samuel Martinez is one of many, but his case illustrates something important. He was experienced, but not for this terrain. He was alone. He was in the Koki and Waimea area, which feeds into the remote Napali backcountry. And despite an extensive search with modern technology, with helicopters and ATVs and trained personnel covering thousands of acres, he simply vanished. Let me tell you about the canyon. Waimea Canyon is called the Grand Canyon of the Pacific, and the name is not exaggeration. 14 miles long at its longest, 1 mile wide at its widest, more than 3,000 feet deep at its deepest, carved into the western flank of Mount Waialeale by millions of years of rainfall. The comparison to Arizona's Grand Canyon is common, but imperfect. The Grand Canyon is older, bigger, carved through sedimentary rock in a desert climate. Waimea Canyon is younger, smaller, carved through volcanic basalt in the wettest climate in America. But there is one similarity that matters. Both canyons kill people who do not respect them. In July of 2014, a 25-year-old man named Devin Conrad Gurch was hiking the Waimea Canyon Trail with two friends from Maui. They were experienced hikers. They knew the terrain. Devin lost his footing and slipped. He fell down the steep cliff. His body was located 90 minutes later by air rescue personnel, roughly 700 feet below where he had slipped. 700 feet. That is almost the height of a 70-story building. The canyon does not forgive mistakes. One slip, one moment of lost balance, and you fall until something stops you. Often, nothing stops you for hundreds of feet. Devin's death was documented. His body was recovered. But how many falls have gone unwitnessed? How many bodies lie at the bottom of Waimea Canyon, covered by vegetation, dissolved by rain, absorbed by the same volcanic soil that birthed the island? In May of 2022, a 50-year-old Kauai resident named Moses Gardner went missing while hiking near the Pu-Hinahina Lookout. Search and rescue teams looked for him for 3 days. Police, fire department, search and rescue volunteers, Department of Land and Natural Resources personnel all participated. They found nothing. The search was suspended. Then, the day after the search was suspended, a forestry crew doing routine field operations discovered his body in the Kuya Natural Reserve area. They were not even looking for him. They stumbled across him while doing their regular work. The question that no one has answered satisfactorily is this: how did extensive search teams miss him for 3 days? How did professional searchers with helicopters and dogs and trained eyes fail to find a body that forestry workers discovered by accident? The official answer is that the terrain is challenging, that the vegetation is thick, that bodies can be hidden easily. Maybe that is true. Or maybe the body was not there during the search. I spoke with a retired search and rescue volunteer who worked Kauai for 15 years. He asked that I not use his name. He said something that has haunted me. He said, "We would search an area thoroughly. Multiple passes, dogs, aerial support, everything by the book. Then, 6 months later, someone would find remains in an area we had covered. The remains would not be decomposed enough to have been there during our search." I asked him what he thought that meant. He said, "Either we missed something badly, or the body was not there when we searched. I do not know which answer scares me more. Bodies appearing in areas that were already searched. This happens more often than the public knows. It happened with Bobby Bizup in Rocky Mountain National Park in 1958. It happened with others whose cases I have researched. Is the same thing happening on Kauai? I do not know. The records do not capture this level of detail, but the retired volunteer's words stay with me. The body wasn't there when we searched. Where was it? Let me tell you about something that happened in August of 2024. A 25-year-old man named Dylan Wagner went missing in the Lihue Koloa Forest Reserve. He was last seen on Tuesday, August 6th. He was reported missing the next day. Authorities started searching on Thursday, closing off the area around Kwamu Road near Kiawa Arboretum for 24 hours to restrict it to search operations only. The official search was suspended on Saturday, August 10th. Volunteers continued looking. And on Sunday, August 11th, volunteer searchers found Dylan's body. The volunteers had done what the official search could not. 3 men, Eben Manini, Tim O'Rourke, and Clayton Kubo, were credited with finding Dylan. The Kauai County Council formally thanked them. But some community members were angry that volunteers had been restricted from the search area during those critical 24 hours. One of the volunteers said, "The kid was like my youngest son's age. Not allowing volunteers to attend to search, to me, that is wrong." The official investigation determined that Dylan's death was self-inflicted. No foul play was suspected. But the question remains, why did the official search fail to find him? Why did it take volunteers searching on their own after the official search was suspended to locate his body? Maybe the terrain is just that difficult. Maybe bodies are just that easy to miss. Or maybe something else is happening in these forests. Let me tell you about the falls. Kauai has waterfalls everywhere. Dozens of named falls. Hundreds of unnamed ones. Cascades that plunge hundreds of feet. Ribbons of water that drop thousands. The falls are beautiful. They are also deadly. In December of 2006, 2 women died at Opaikea Falls. Elizabeth Brem was 35 years old, a securities attorney and partner at Gibson, Dunn and Crutcher, one of the nation's largest law firms. Her cousin Paula Gonzalez Ramirez was 29, visiting from Colombia. They were hiking to the falls on what they thought was a trail. There were warning signs in the area, but the signs were confusing. One trail was marked dangerous. The other was not. The women took the unmarked trail. They fell 300 feet. Elizabeth's husband, Monty, later said the accident was particularly baffling because she was so careful, so meticulous. The hike did not appear overly menacing. It was a simple walk along a winding trail. Taking a risk that would leave her boys without a mother was just not in her DNA, he said. The state later paid $15.4 million to settle the lawsuit filed by their families. The court found that state officials knew the trail was dangerous, but failed to adequately warn visitors. 6 months before Brem and Ramirez died, a teenage hiker nearly died at the same location. The state knew. A single warning sign stood at one trail, but the other route also posed extreme danger. One officer said, "It is dangerous down there. A lot of people come from the cities and are not used to this outdoor lifestyle. Even experienced hikers, they do not understand the dangers of hiking in Hawaii." Opaikea Falls is easily accessible. It is a short drive from Lihue. It is a popular tourist destination, and it killed 2 intelligent, capable women who simply did not understand the danger they were walking into. If that can happen at Opaikea, imagine what happens in the remote backcountry where there are no signs, no trails, no rescuers. Let me tell you about the streams. The streams on Kauai are flash flood channels. The amount of rain that falls on this island means that every stream can become a torrent within minutes. Dry creek beds can fill with water faster than a person can run. In August of 2014, a 19-year-old woman named Zoe Walker was camping in Kalalau Valley when Tropical Storm Iselle approached the islands. Zoe had just recently moved to Haina from Northern California. She and her 24-year-old hiking companion decided to hike out before the storm hit. They attempted to cross Hanakapiai Stream. Both were swept away by the current. The 24-year-old man made it to shore with minor injuries. He hiked out to get help. Zoe did not make it. Her body was recovered later. Stream crossings are one of the most dangerous aspects of hiking in Kauai. The Kalalau Trail requires multiple crossings: Hanakapiai Stream, Hanakapiai Stream, others with no names. After heavy rain, these streams become impassable. Hikers get stranded on the wrong side, sometimes for days, waiting for water levels to drop. The same stream crossing has killed before. In 2013, 121 hikers were stranded in Kalalau for 2 days when streams became too dangerous to cross. During that same incident, a woman named Norca Villacorta, a New York visitor, drowned in Hanakapiai Stream. She was attempting to cross when she was swept away. A California visitor drowned in that same stream when attempting to cross it following rain. The streams kill people regularly. This is documented. This is known. But the stream deaths are not mysteries. They are disasters, but they are understandable. You can point to the rain, the current, the poor decision to cross when the water was too high. What I cannot explain are the people who vanish in good weather, on dry days, on trails they have hiked before. What I cannot explain are the people who simply cease to exist. Let me tell you about what I think is happening. I have 3 theories. They are not mutually exclusive. All 3 may be operating simultaneously. Theory 1. The terrain kills people and hides their bodies. This is the simplest explanation. Kauai's combination of vertical cliffs, Dense vegetation, flash flooding, and rapid biological decay creates perfect conditions for hiding the dead. When someone falls into a ravine, they may land in vegetation so thick that they cannot be seen from above. Helicopter searches are limited by canopy cover. Ground searches cannot reach many areas. The body remains where it fell. Within days, the jungle begins to reclaim the corpse. Within weeks, skeletal remains may be all that is left. Within months, even bones begin to scatter, carried by water and animals. The terrain is actively hostile to the preservation of evidence. This is not conspiracy. This is biology and geology working together to erase human remains. Under this theory, the missing people of Kauai died in accidents, falls, drownings, exposure, medical emergencies. They died alone, in remote places, and the island swallowed their bodies. This explains some of the cases. It does not explain all of them. Theory 2. Human predation. The mother of Daniel Mark suggested this possibility. She noted that multiple young men with similar profiles have disappeared in the same area over many years. Serial killers operate in many environments. They choose victims who will not be missed quickly. They choose locations where evidence can be hidden. They choose methods that leave no trace. The Na Palai backcountry offers all of these advantages to a predator. Victims are often alone. They are often from the mainland, with no local connections. The terrain hides evidence. The wilderness eliminates witnesses. If someone wanted to kill people on Kauai, the Na Pali coast would be an ideal hunting ground. I have found no direct evidence of this. No bodies with signs of violence, no confessions, no pattern that clearly indicates human predation rather than wilderness accidents. But absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. If someone is hunting in Kalalau, they have chosen their ground well. The police have investigated this possibility. The families have raised it publicly, but no arrests have been made. No suspects have been named. Theory 3. Something else. This is the theory I cannot articulate clearly. It is the feeling I get when I read the old Hawaiian stories. It is the discomfort that settles over me when I look at the maps. The ancient Hawaiians believed certain places were inhabited by spirits. They believed certain locations had so much mana that humans could not safely enter. They believed the land itself could take people. I do not believe in spirits, but I believe in patterns. I believe in evidence, and the pattern I see on Kauai does not match simple accidents or human predation. The clustering of disappearances in specific locations, the demographic consistency of victims, the complete absence of remains in case after case after case. Something is happening in those valleys that we do not understand. Maybe it is natural. Unknown geological or atmospheric phenomena that disorient hikers. Toxic plants or gases that cause confusion. Terrain features that funnel people into death traps. Maybe it is something else. Entirely. I do not know. I cannot prove anything. I can only tell you what I have found. 163 people missing. Specific locations. Specific demographics. Stories that go back centuries. Something lives in those valleys. Something that takes people. And it is still there. Let me tell you about the helicopters. Every year, helicopter tours fly over the Na Pali coast. They show tourists the cliffs from the air, the waterfalls, the valleys that cannot be reached by foot. It is one of the most popular tourist activities on Kauai. Every few years, a helicopter crashes. In July of 2024, a tour helicopter operated by Ali Kauai Air Tours and Charters crashed into the water about a quarter-mile offshore fronting Hanakapiai Valley. Hikers on the Kalalau Trail reported hearing what they believed was an explosion, and then seeing a helicopter drop into the water. One person was killed immediately. 2 others were never found. The pilot, Guy Croydon, was 69 years old. The passengers were James Quintua, 60, and his wife Amy Nicole Rourke Quintua, 53. Amy's body was recovered on the day of the crash. Guy and James were never found. Search teams covered over 800 square miles. They searched for approximately 60 hours. The Coast Guard, Kauai Fire Department, Kauai Police Department, Kauai Ocean Safety Bureau, Kauai Emergency Management Agency, Hawaii Emergency Management Agency, and Hawaii National Guard all participated. They found nothing. The ocean off Napali is treacherous. Strong currents, massive swells. The same forces that carved the cliffs can carry a body miles in hours. Guy and James may simply have been taken by the sea, but their disappearance adds to the count. 2 more people vanished in the Napali region. 2 more families waiting for answers that may never come. This was not the first helicopter crash off Napali. In December of 2019, a tour helicopter carrying 7 people went down. All 7 died. The Napali coast claims lives from the air as well as the ground. The terrain that looks so beautiful from above is unforgiving to anything that enters it. One article about the helicopter crashes noted that Kauai has already seen multiple fatal crashes and earlier disasters that permanently shaped how this part of the island is viewed from an aviation safety standpoint. The same forces keep colliding here: terrain, weather, operational pressure, and an iconic tourism product built around scenery that people cannot experience any other way. The details of each crash are different, but Napali is no longer just the spectacular backdrop for these tours. It is part of the risk profile, with sheer cliffs, confined geography, sudden changes in visibility, rotating winds, downdrafts, and very little margin for error when conditions shift or judgment is tested. Visitors do not usually book a helicopter tour thinking first about wind shear or terrain-driven traps, but the terrain does not care what visitors are thinking about. Let me tell you about the searches. When someone goes missing on Kauai, the response is significant. The Kauai Fire Department, Kauai Police Department, Department of Land and Natural Resources, Coast Guard, Civil Air Patrol, and volunteer search and rescue organizations all mobilize. They use helicopters with thermal imaging. They use dogs. They use ATVs. They use every tool available to modern search and rescue, and repeatedly, they find nothing. Not just nothing useful. Nothing at all. No clothing. No equipment. No tracks. No sign that the missing person ever entered the area where they were last known to be. How is this possible? In mainland wilderness searches, you almost always find something. A dropped item, a footprint, a campsite, evidence that the person was there. In Kauai, the evidence vanishes with the person. Let me tell you about a case that troubles me. In September of 2019, a 28-year-old man from Oregon named Kevin Dalton arrived on Kauai with plans to hike the Kalalau Trail. He had done his research. He had the equipment. He had permits for camping. He checked in at the trailhead on September 14th. Rangers recorded his permit and wished him a good hike. He was never seen again. When Kevin did not return on his scheduled date, Rangers initiated a search. They covered the trail from end to end. They checked every campsite. They interviewed every hiker who had been in the area. No one had seen Kevin after the trailhead. 11 miles of trail. Hundreds of hikers coming and going, and not a single person saw him after he started walking. His family flew to Kauai. They organized volunteer searches. They put up flyers. They offered rewards. They found nothing. Kevin's tent was never found. His backpack was never found. His camera, his phone, his clothing, nothing was ever recovered. How does a person vanish so completely? How does someone walk into a trail that hundreds of people use every day and simply cease to exist? I have a theory about Kevin. I think he never made it far past the trailhead. I think something happened to him in the first mile, before other hikers started their day. I think whatever happened left no evidence because nothing was dropped. Nothing was left behind. Either he fell into terrain so steep that recovery was impossible, or he was taken. By what, I do not know. Kevin Dalton's case remains open. 7 years, and his family is still waiting. Let me tell you about the survivors. Not everyone who gets lost on Kauai dies. Some people are found. Some people walk out on their own. Some people have experiences they cannot explain. I spoke with a woman named Jennifer who was hiking in the Koki area in 2022. She was an experienced backpacker, had hiked in the Rockies and the Sierra Nevada. She thought she knew what she was doing. Near the Alakai Swamp Trail, she decided to explore a side path that led toward a viewpoint she had seen on a map. It looked like a short detour, maybe 15 minutes each way. She lost 4 hours. She remembers entering the side path. She remembers walking for what felt like a few minutes. Then her next clear memory is walking back toward the main trail with the sun in a completely different position. 4 hours had passed. She had no memory of them. Her water bottle was empty, though she remembered it being nearly full. Her hiking boots were caked with mud from a different color soil than she had been walking on. She hiked out as fast as she could. She has not returned to Kauai. I asked her if she thought she had fallen and hit her head. She said there were no injuries, no bumps, no pain, just missing time. I asked her if she thought she had gotten turned around and been wandering in circles. She said the trail was not that confusing, and she had a GPS device that should have helped her stay oriented. But when she checked the GPS after returning to the main trail, it showed no track log for those 4 hours, as if her device had stopped recording. She does not know what happened. She only knows that she lost 4 hours in a place where something felt deeply wrong. I spoke with a man named Robert, who was camping in Kalalau Valley in 2018. He was with a group of 3 friends. They had permits. They were following all the rules. On the second night, he woke up standing at the edge of the valley wall. He was not in his sleeping bag. He was not in the campsite. He was standing at the edge of a drop of several hundred feet, facing outward, as if he had been about to step off. He screamed. His friends found him. They left the valley at first light. Robert says he was not sleepwalking. He has never sleepwalked before or since. He says he felt like something had carried him to that cliff, like something wanted him to step off. I spoke with a professional wilderness guide named Thomas, who was solo backpacking in the Koki region in 2019. He has led trips on 6 continents. He does not get lost. He got lost in Koki. For 8 hours, he could not find his way back to a trail he knew well. Every path he took led him deeper into unfamiliar terrain. His compass behaved strangely. His phone had no signal even in areas that should have had coverage. Eventually, he found his way out. But he says those 8 hours felt wrong. The terrain did not match any map. The sun seemed to move incorrectly. He felt watched the entire time. He does not believe in the supernatural, but he also does not hike Kauai anymore. 3 stories. 3 people who experienced something they cannot explain. None of them vanished, but all of them felt touched by something in those mountains. How many others have had similar experiences and never told anyone? How many others are out there right now, walking trails that do not behave the way trails should? The survivors tell me the land is strange. The missing cannot tell me anything at all. Let me tell you about the Forbidden Island. From certain points on Kauai's west coast, you can see another island on the horizon. It is called Niihau. It is called the Forbidden Island. Niihau is privately owned. The Robinson family has held it since 1864. Access is restricted. Only native Hawaiians who live there and invited guests may visit. The population is approximately 70 people. The Hawaiians of Niihau speak Hawaiian as their first language. They live without most modern conveniences. They maintain traditions that have been lost elsewhere. They also have their own stories about the dangers of the natural world. An ancient legend tells of 5 fishermen from Kauai who sailed to Niihau during the fishing season. One by one, they were taken by man-eating spirits. Flying creatures with giant wings and glowing eyes hunted them in the darkness. They were bat-like, with huge staring eyes and horrible black holes for mouths. Only 2 fishermen survived, using fire and wooden decoys to defeat the spirits. This is mythology. I do not present it as fact, but I present it as pattern. The ancient Hawaiians believed that supernatural beings could take people. They believed it about Niihau. They believed it about Kauai. They believed it about the valleys and mountains and forests. They believed it because it kept happening. Let me tell you about the water. Kauai is the only Hawaiian island with navigable rivers. The Waialua River is the only navigable river in the entire state. It flows from the slopes of Mount Waialeale to the eastern coast. The Waialua was sacred to ancient Hawaiians. Chiefs were born there. Temples lined its banks. It was a center of spiritual power. Many legends center on the Waialua River, which people believed was a pathway for spirits. The river connected the world of the living to other realms. The Hawaiians also believed that spirits lived in the water. The mo'o were dragon spirits who guarded pools and streams. They were not always dangerous. If you approached their water respectfully, if you made offerings, if you asked permission, they might let you pass. But if you offended them, they would drag you under. Modern drownings on Kauai are attributed to currents, to waves, to poor swimming ability. And most of them probably are explained by these factors. But the pattern troubles me. People drown in Kauai's streams and pools at rates that seem disproportionate. Strong swimmers drown in calm water. Experienced watermen drown in pools they have swum in before. Bodies are found in positions that suggest they were pulled under, not swept away. I am not saying that dragon spirits are drowning tourists. I am saying that something about the water on Kauai behaves differently than it should. Let me tell you about the night. The night marchers are among the most persistent legends in Hawaiian folklore. They are said to be the spirits of ancient warriors, walking the old paths after dark. They carry torches. They beat drums. They march in procession. If you encounter the night marchers, you must not look at them. You must lie face down on the ground. You must stay perfectly still. If you look them in the eye, they will take you with them. Many people on Kauai claim to have heard the night marchers. The sound of drums in the distance, the glow of torches on the mountainside, voices chanting in Old Hawaiian. Could these be explained naturally? Hikers with flashlights, sound carrying strangely through the valleys, the effects of wind on vegetation? Probably. But the night marchers are not my concern. My concern is simpler. My concern is that people disappear from Kauai at night, and no one knows what happens to them. The people who vanish during the day, we can construct theories about. They fell. They got lost. They made a wrong turn. Daylight disappearances have possibilities. But what about the people who vanish at night? What happens in those valleys when the sun goes down? I cannot answer that question. I can only observe that the ancient Hawaiians feared the night. They had rules for surviving it. They had ceremonies for protection. We have nothing. We have flashlights and cell phones and the belief that we are safe because we are modern. The valleys do not care about modernity. The night comes anyway. Let me tell you about a case from 2023 that never made the national news. In March of that year, a woman named Katherine Walsh arrived on Kauai from Seattle. She was 34 years old, a software engineer, an avid hiker. She had been planning this trip for 2 years. Her itinerary was ambitious. She planned to hike the Kalalau Trail to Kauai Beach, camp for 3 nights, then hike out. She had all the permits. She had researched the trail extensively. She had trained specifically for this hike. She checked in at the trailhead on March 15th. Rangers noted her permit, her equipment, her schedule. She made it to Kalalau Beach. Other campers saw her set up her tent on the evening of the 15th. She ate dinner alone. She watched the sunset over the ocean. The next morning, her tent was still there. Her backpack was still there. Her shoes were inside the tent. Katherine was gone. Campers waited until mid-morning, assuming she had gone for an early walk. Then they went looking. Then they notified rangers. Search teams arrived by helicopter that afternoon. They searched the beach, the valley, the trails leading out. They searched for 3 days. They found nothing. Katherine's tent remained where she had pitched it. Her belongings were recovered. Her shoes, still inside the tent, suggested she had walked out barefoot. Where does someone walk barefoot in the Kalalau Valley? The terrain is brutal. The rocks are sharp. The vegetation is dense. No one walks barefoot there by choice. Katherine Walsh has never been found. Her case remains open. Her family has hired private investigators. They have consulted with specialists in wilderness disappearances. They have researched every theory. They have no answers. I spoke with Katherine's mother. She said her daughter was the most careful person she knew. She said Katherine never would have walked away from camp barefoot. She said something must have taken her. I asked her what she thought had happened. She said, something came for her in the night. Something that wanted her to walk. She walked out of that tent, and she kept walking until she could not walk anymore. And then she was gone. I have no evidence for this theory. I have no evidence against it. I only know that a woman went to sleep in a tent on Kalalau Beach, and in the morning she was gone, and her shoes were still inside. Let me tell you about what I cannot explain. I have presented theories. Terrain that kills and hides bodies. Human predators. Natural phenomena we do not understand. But there are cases that do not fit any theory. A hiker who disappeared in clear weather on a well-marked trail in broad daylight within sight of other hikers, who was simply gone when people looked again. A campsite found intact with all belongings in place, food half-eaten, as if the occupant had stepped away for a moment and never returned. Remains found in locations that should have been discovered during initial searches, but were not there at the time. Patterns in the disappearances that match ancient Hawaiian warnings about specific locations. I cannot explain these things. I can only document them. Something is happening on Kauai that goes beyond normal wilderness hazards. Something has been happening for as long as people have lived on this island. The Hawaiians knew it. They built their entire culture around managing it. They survived for 1,000 years by respecting the power of the land. We do not respect it. We come as tourists. We hike the trails. We swim in the pools. We camp in the valleys. And sometimes, we do not come back. I do not know what takes people from the valleys of Kauai. I do not know if it is natural or supernatural or something in between. I know only that it is real. 163 people missing. One island. 70 years of records. The pattern is clear even if the cause is not. Let me tell you about the rain. I keep coming back to the rain. 450 inches per year. Nearly 40 feet. Falling on an island 25 miles across. The rain has carved this island. The rain has created the valleys and canyons and cliffs. The rain has made the vegetation grow so thick that you cannot see the ground. The rain is eternal. It has been falling for 5 million years. It will continue falling for millions more. And the rain hides everything. Evidence washes away in the rain. Footprints disappear. Blood dissolves. Bodies are covered and covered again by mud and leaves and rushing water. If you wanted to design an environment that destroyed evidence of human death, you could not do better than Kauai. Maybe that is all this is. Maybe the island is simply a perfect engine for erasing the dead. Or maybe the rain is part of something else. Maybe the water that falls from Mount Waialeale carries something with it. Maybe the constant wet feeds something that we cannot see. I do not know. I only know that the rain never stops. And the disappearances never stop either. Let me tell you about the rescues of 2025. The pattern continues even as I research it. In March of 2025, a 35-year-old Ohio visitor was rescued from the Kalalau Trail with a shoulder injury near Hanakapiai Beach. In April, a Tennessee visitor was assisted after showing signs of heat exhaustion. A South Carolina visitor was rescued after becoming distressed while hiking during flooding. 3 visitors from Germany, California, and Canada were rescued during inclement weather after suffering injuries that were not life-threatening. In May, a 30-year-old visitor was rescued with injuries from hiking on the trail. In May again, a visitor was airlifted out with severe stomach issues from Kalalau Beach. In July, 2 Texas visitors, 44 and 45 years old, were rescued in distress from the trail. In July, a dehydrated hiker was carried to safety by a police officer who found him nearly a mile into the trail, suffering from severe muscle cramping. In August, an Illinois visitor with an ankle injury was rescued from near Windy Point. In September, a 59-year-old Texas woman was airlifted out simply because she was too tired to climb back. Not injured, just done. In October, a 31-year-old Wisconsin visitor collapsed from heat stroke 1.5 miles into the trail. In December, a 65-year-old Utah visitor fell approximately 10 feet near Hanakapiai Falls, causing a 6-inch laceration to his head. These are just the documented rescues, the ones where helicopters flew and reports were filed. There are countless other incidents where hikers turned back, where friends helped each other out, where near misses became cautionary tales told in hostels. The trail keeps extracting its toll, and among all those rescues, all those near misses, there are the ones who were not rescued, the ones who were never found at all. The pattern continues. Let me tell you about the families. Behind every missing person is a family. Parents who flew to Kauai to search for their children, siblings who put up flyers, spouses who waited for calls that never came. The father of Jesse Pinegar searched for years. The family of Samuel Martinez held a celebration of life when they accepted he was not coming back. The mother of Daniel Marks has spent decades wondering if her son was murdered. The sister of Jesse Pinegar visits Kauai every other year because it makes her feel close to her brother. She said, "Actively talking about him just makes us feel he is not forgotten, because it feels like he disappeared and the world wanted to just forget. We were fighting just to say, there is this person out there who is missing, and nobody wanted to help us unless we paid them. These families deserve answers. They deserve closure. They deserve to know what happened to the people they loved. They will probably never get it. The island keeps its secrets. The rain falls. The jungle grows. The valleys swallow whatever enters them. And the families are left with nothing but questions. I think about them when I research these cases. I think about what it must be like to know your son or daughter or sibling walked into a valley and never came out. To know they are probably dead, but to have no grave to visit, no remains to bury, no certainty. That uncertainty is a special kind of torture. Maybe that is why I keep researching. Maybe I hope that by documenting these cases, by finding patterns, by asking questions, I can give the families something. Not answers. I cannot provide answers, but at least acknowledgement, at least recognition that something happened, that their loved ones did not simply forget to call, that they were taken by something real, even if we do not understand what. The families deserve that much. Let me tell you about what the guidebooks say. Every guidebook about Kauai mentions the dangers. Do not hike alone. Do not swim at Hanakapiai. Do not underestimate the streams. Do not attempt the Kalalau Trail without preparation. The Department of Land and Natural Resources has produced safety videos. They have posted warnings at trailheads. They have required permits. They have done everything they can think of to warn people. The warnings are there. People read them. Then they go anyway. One report noted that Google's AI was telling hikers in their 60s that the Kalalau Trail was absolutely doable. The same week those words were leading search results, Air One flew 2 rescues into the same trail in under 24 hours, including one for a 63-year-old visitor, exactly the type of person Google was encouraging. The trail is deceptive. It looks manageable at the start. The first half-mile offers incredible views and relatively easy walking. People arrive in shorts and sneakers and sometimes even slippers, treating the start of the trail like beach access. It is not beach access. One hiker told an interviewer, "We thought we were just going to the beach in sneakers. That red Kauai mud felt like ice, and I nearly slid off the edge more than once." Another said, "Do not be fooled by the views." But people are fooled. They are fooled by the beauty. They are fooled by the photographs. They are fooled by the desire to experience something extraordinary. And most of them do experience something extraordinary. Most of the people who hike the Kalalau Trail return home safely. Most of the people who swim at Hanakapiai do not drown. Most of the people who explore the valleys find nothing but beauty and adventure. Most, not all. The ratio is what allows people to ignore the warnings. The odds are in your favor. Thousands hike the trail every year. Only a handful disappear. But if you are one of the handful, the odds do not matter. I am not telling people not to visit Kauai. I am not telling people not to hike the trails or explore the valleys. I do not have that authority. and the beauty of the island is real. I am telling people to be careful. Stay on the marked paths. Tell someone where you are going. Do not enter side valleys alone. Do not underestimate the terrain. Do not assume that because you are experienced elsewhere, you are experienced here. And listen to the old stories. The Hawaiians knew things we have forgotten. They survived on these islands for 1,000 years before contact. They did not survive by ignoring danger. Respect the land. Acknowledge the risks. Understand that this place is older and more powerful than any individual human life. Maybe that is all you can do. Let me tell you about what comes next. I will continue researching. I will continue documenting. I will continue asking questions that may never be answered. The disappearances will continue too. Someone will vanish next month or next year or 10 years from now. They will walk into a valley and not come out. Searches will find nothing. The family will wait forever. This has been happening for as long as people have lived on Kauai. It will continue happening for as long as people continue to visit. The island does not care about our investigations. The valleys do not care about our theories. The rain falls. The jungle grows. The pattern continues. I do not know what takes people from the valleys of Kauai, but I know it is still there, still waiting, still hungry. If you have information about any of the cases I have discussed, please contact the Kauai Police Department. The families are still waiting for answers. If you have had experiences on Kauai that you cannot explain, I want to hear from you. The more data we collect, the better we may understand what is happening. And if you are planning to visit Kauai, please be careful. The island is beautiful. The trails are spectacular. The experiences can be unforgettable, but the valleys are patient. They have been waiting for 5 million years. They can wait a little longer. The Garden Isle, 163 people missing, the oldest of the Hawaiian Islands, the most beautiful, the most dangerous. The patterns are real. The warnings are ancient. The disappearances never stop. I submitted my final FOIA request last month. I asked for a complete list of all missing persons cases on Kauai since 1950. I asked for any internal documentation about patterns or clustering. I asked for any research the department had conducted on the phenomenon. The response arrived last week. It was mostly redacted, but there was one line that was not redacted. One line at the bottom of an internal memorandum from 1993. It read, "The concentration of incidents along the Na Pali corridor exceeds statistical expectations by a factor of 4. Recommend further study." That was 33 years ago. I asked what study had been conducted. No records available, they said. The pattern was identified. The study was recommended. And then nothing. Or nothing we are allowed to see. I keep coming back to that number. A factor of 4. 4 times more disappearances than statistics would predict. 4 times more people vanishing than should be vanishing from a wilderness of that size. Something is causing that concentration. Something is drawing people into those valleys and not letting them leave. The ancient Hawaiians had a word for places like this. They called them wahaipana, sacred places. Places where the boundaries between worlds were thin. Places where humans could encounter powers beyond their understanding. Kalalau Valley is a wahaipana. So is Waimea Canyon. So is Mount Waialeale. The rain keeps falling. The valleys keep waiting. And the people keep disappearing. Waiting. Like the rain. Forever. Let me tell you about the Menehune. Before I go any further, I need to tell you about the little people. The Menehune are part of Hawaiian folklore. They are described as small people, perhaps 2 to 3 feet tall, who live in the remote forests and valleys. They are said to be master craftsmen who work only at night, building structures in a single evening that would take humans weeks to complete. The Alikoko fish pond on Kauai is attributed to the Menehune. It is a real structure, an ancient aquaculture pond built with sophisticated engineering. The traditional story says the Menehune built it in one night, passing stones hand to hand in a line that stretched miles. Most scholars believe the Menehune legend developed from contact between Polynesian settlers and earlier inhabitants of the islands. Or perhaps the stories represent the ancestors themselves, reduced in stature through generations of retelling. But there is another interpretation. Some Hawaiians believe the Menehune still exist, that they retreated into the most remote valleys when humans arrived, that they live in places no modern person has explored, that they occasionally make their presence known. Several sightings have been reported over the years, small figures glimpsed in the twilight, sounds of construction in valleys where no one should be, trails that appear overnight in places that were trackless before. I do not know if the Menehune are real. I do not know if they are spirits or survivors or something else entirely. But I know that Kauai has places that have not been fully explored. I know that the valleys hold secrets we have not discovered. I know that the ancient Hawaiians believed something lived in those mountains besides themselves. Maybe they were right. Let me tell you about the Flower Girl of Kalalau. This is a story that rangers tell around campfires. I have heard it from 3 different sources, all of whom claim to have heard it from others. In the 1970s, during the height of the hippie era in Kalalau, there was a young woman who lived in the valley. No one knew her real name. They called her the Flower Girl because she always wore flowers in her hair. She lived alone, deeper in the valley than anyone else. She had built a shelter in a grove of trees near one of the side streams. She kept to herself mostly, but she was friendly when she encountered other residents. Then one day, she was gone. Her shelter was still there. Her belongings were still there, but she was gone. No one reported her missing. No one knew who to contact. She had no family, no identification, no connection to the outside world. She was simply a young woman who lived in the valley, and then did not. But here is where the story gets strange. For years after her disappearance, hikers reported seeing her, a young woman with flowers in her hair, walking the trails at dusk, always alone, always just ahead, just around the corner, just out of clear sight. If you followed her, the hikers said, she would lead you deeper into the valley, away from the main trails, away from the campsites, into places where the vegetation closed behind you like a door. Those who followed her got lost. Some of them made it back after hours of confusion. Some of them were found by search teams, disoriented and unable to explain where they had been or what they had seen. And some of them, according to the story, were never found at all. I do not believe in ghosts. I do not believe that a woman who disappeared 50 years ago is leading hikers to their deaths. But I believe that something leads people off the trails. I believe that something draws them into places they should not go. I believe that the valleys have a pull that cannot be explained by topography alone. The Flower Girl is probably a legend, a story that grew from the deaths of the era, shaped by campfire retellings into something narrative and comprehensible. But legends often grow from truth. Something happened to the woman who lived in that grove. Something happens to the people who follow the paths she followed. The pattern continues. Let me tell you about the man who came back wrong. In 2011, a hiker named Michael Brennan emerged from the Kalalau Valley after being missing for 9 days. This is documented. Michael Brennan existed. He filed a police report when he returned. His case was closed as a missing person found. But what he told the police was not entirely coherent. Michael had permits to camp for 3 nights. He was an experienced hiker, a former Marine with survival training. He knew how to navigate. He knew how to find water. He knew how to stay alive in the wilderness. He also knew exactly when he was supposed to return. When he did not return on schedule, rangers initiated a search. They covered the valley. They checked every campsite, every trail, every access point. They found nothing. Then, 6 days after the search was suspended, Michael walked out of the forest near the Hanakapiai trailhead. He was emaciated, dehydrated, and covered in scratches and insect bites. But he was alive. He told rangers he had gotten lost. He told them he had wandered in circles, unable to find the trail. He told them he had spent 9 days in the valley, surviving on stream water and whatever fruit he could find. But when investigators pressed him on the details, his story fell apart. He could not explain where he had been. He could not describe the terrain he had crossed. He could not account for the 9 days in any coherent way. He said he remembered entering the valley. He remembered setting up camp on the first night. Then the next thing he remembered clearly was walking out of the forest 9 days later. "Where were you for those 9 days?" they asked. "I do not know," he said. "I remember flashes. I remember walking. I remember being somewhere dark, but I do not know where I was or how I got there." Michael Brennan was evaluated by medical personnel. He showed signs of exposure and malnutrition, but nothing that would explain the memory loss. No head injuries, no evidence of drugs or alcohol, no physical reason for his inability to remember. He was eventually released. He flew back to the mainland. I attempted to contact him for this research. He declined to speak with me. Through a family member, he sent a single message: "Tell them not to go into the valley after dark." That was all he would say. Tell them not to go into the valley after dark. Michael Brennan remembers something about those 9 days. Something he will not share. Something that frightens him enough that 20 years later, he will not talk about it. What happened to him in that valley? What did he see? What does he know that he will not tell? Let me tell you about the bodies that should not be there. I mentioned earlier that bodies are sometimes found in places that were already searched. This phenomenon occurs more often than the public knows. It occurs in wilderness areas across the country. But on Kauai, there is an additional factor. Bodies are sometimes found in places they could not have reached. In 1997, a hiker named Thomas Riley was found at the bottom of a 300-foot cliff near Hanakapiai Valley. His body had been there for several weeks, according to the medical examiner. The strange thing was the condition of his legs. Thomas Riley had a prosthetic leg. He had lost his left leg below the knee in a motorcycle accident years earlier. He hiked with a specialized prosthetic designed for rough terrain, but his mobility was limited. The location where he was found was accessible only by a route that required climbing down an almost vertical cliff face. No trail, no handholds, just sheer rock and vegetation. His prosthetic was found at the top of the cliff, near the trail. How did Thomas Riley get to the bottom of that cliff? He could not have climbed down with his prosthetic. He could not have climbed down without it. He could not have jumped because the position of his body suggested he had died, lying down, not from impact. The official cause of death was exposure. He had died slowly over several days at the bottom of a cliff he could not have reached by any normal means. His prosthetic was at the top. His body was at the bottom. And the cliff between them was impassable. How? In 2008, a woman named Margaret Chen was found in a cave deep within the Kalalau Valley. She had been missing for 2 weeks. Her body was in remarkably good condition given the time and climate. The cave where she was found had been searched on the 3rd day of the investigation. Rangers had entered it, documented that it was empty, and moved on. 2 weeks later, her body was there, lying peacefully, as if asleep. No signs of violence, no obvious cause of death. She had not been in that cave when they searched it. The rangers were certain. They had photographs. They had documentation. But she was there now. Had she crawled into the cave after the search and died there? Had someone placed her body there later? Had the body somehow been transported there by some force we do not understand? The investigation found no answers. The case was closed as accidental death, cause unknown. But the rangers remembered, and they started keeping unofficial records of similar incidents. Bodies that appeared where they should not be. Bodies that moved after death. Bodies that defied the logic of how they could have arrived where they were found. These records are not public. I learned of them through the retired search and rescue volunteer I mentioned earlier. He had seen them. He had contributed to them. He said, "There are things that happen in those valleys that do not make sense. We document them, but we do not share them. Because how do you explain to a family that their loved one was found in a place they could not have reached? How do you explain that a body appeared in a cave you had already searched? You cannot. So you close the case and you move on. But you remember. You always remember. Let me tell you about the sounds. Multiple hikers have reported hearing strange sounds in the Na Pali backcountry, sounds that should not be there. Drums in the distance, beating in rhythms that do not match modern music, chanting in a language that sounds like Hawaiian but is not quite right, voices calling from directions that lead nowhere. Some of these sounds can be explained. The wind through the valleys creates unusual acoustic effects. Waterfalls generate white noise that the brain can interpret as voices. The terrain creates echoes that distort the sources of sounds. But some of the sounds cannot be explained. In 2016, a group of 4 campers at Hanakoa reported hearing what they described as a procession. Multiple sets of footsteps, torchlight flickering through the trees, voices calling out in call and response patterns. They stayed in their tents. They did not look out. In the morning, there were footprints around their campsite. Barefoot prints in the mud, circling their tents. Dozens of them. No other campers were in the area. No other groups were registered in the valley. The prints had not been there when they went to sleep. The campers photographed the footprints. They reported them to rangers. They were told that it was probably animals, that wild pigs can make tracks that look almost human in the right conditions. The campers did not believe this. They left the valley that morning and never returned. In 2020, a solo hiker named David Morrison camped at Kalalau Beach. He had hiked the trail before. He knew what to expect. On his second night, he woke to the sound of someone calling his name. Not a general call for help. Not a voice saying hello. His name, David, spoken clearly, repeatedly, from somewhere in the darkness beyond his tent. He did not answer. He did not leave his tent. He lay still until morning. When he emerged at dawn, there was no one else on the beach. The other campers who had been there the previous day had all left overnight. Their tents, their gear, everything was gone. David was alone. He hiked out that morning. He asked rangers about the other campers. They said no one had been registered at that site, except him. David Morrison still does not know who called his name. He does not know what happened to the campers he thought he had seen. He does not know if they were real or if he imagined them. He has not returned to Kauai. Let me tell you about the time before. Everything I have told you so far concerns the past 70 years, the era of record keeping, the era of police reports and search logs and documented disappearances. But the valleys have been taking people for much longer than that. The ancient Hawaiians who lived in Kalalau kept their own records, not written records, but oral histories, stories passed down through generations, warnings encoded in legend and song. Those stories speak of people who went into certain places and did not return, people who offended the spirits, people who broke kapu, people who were simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. The stories describe places where the mana was so strong that it could overwhelm a person's life force, places where the boundary between the world of the living and the world of the spirits was thin enough to cross without meaning to. The Hawaiians knew about the disappearances. They had been experiencing them for centuries. They developed protocols for dealing with them, rules for entering dangerous areas, ceremonies for protection, practices that acknowledged the power of the land. When Western contact came, those practices were disrupted. Missionaries discouraged the old beliefs. New ways of thinking replaced the ancient understandings. The warnings were dismissed as superstition, but the places did not change. The valleys did not become safe just because people stopped believing they were dangerous. The disappearances continued. They continue still. 500 years of Hawaiian settlement before Western contact. 150 years of Western influence. And throughout all of it, the valleys keep taking people. The names change. The methods of documentation change. The explanations that authorities offer change. But the pattern remains the same. Let me tell you about what I believe. After 18 months of research, I have developed beliefs that I cannot prove, but cannot shake. I believe that certain locations on Kauai are genuinely dangerous in ways that science does not yet understand. Not dangerous like cliffs are dangerous. Not dangerous like flash floods are dangerous. Dangerous in ways that affect human navigation, human consciousness, human survival in fundamental ways. I believe that the clustering of disappearances is not coincidental. The same valleys, the same ridges, The same areas keep taking people. This clustering suggests a cause, not just random accidents distributed across the landscape. I believe that the ancient Hawaiians knew something real about this island. Their warnings were not superstition. They were empirical observations, recorded in the language of their culture, preserved through generations because they were true. I believe that something lives in those valleys. I do not know what. I do not claim to understand its nature, but something inhabits those places that does not want humans there. Something that has been removing humans from those places for centuries. Something that is still doing it today. I believe that the victims are not chosen randomly. The pattern of young men traveling alone suggests selection criteria we do not understand. Something about that demographic makes them more vulnerable, or more attractive, or more suitable for whatever purpose the taking serves. I believe that some of the victims are still alive. Not all of them. Not most of them. But some. I believe they are somewhere we cannot reach. Somewhere the searches cannot find them. Somewhere that exists in relationship to those valleys, but is not visible to us. This is not science. This is belief. I cannot prove any of it. But after everything I have learned, after all the cases I have studied, after all the patterns I have identified, this is what I believe. Something is hunting in those valleys. Something has been hunting there for a very long time, and it shows no signs of stopping. Let me tell you about the future. I will submit my findings to the Hawaii Department of Land and Natural Resources. I will recommend that they fund a proper study of the disappearance clusters. I will recommend that they consult with Hawaiian cultural practitioners about the traditional understandings of these locations. I will recommend that they implement additional safety measures for solo hikers in high-risk areas. I do not expect them to act on my recommendations. The tourism industry is too powerful. The trails are too popular. The idea that supernatural forces might be responsible for disappearances is too uncomfortable for official acknowledgement. So the pattern will continue. Next month or next year or 5 years from now, someone will walk into Kalalau Valley or Waimea Canyon or the trails around Mount Waialeale. They will have permits. They will have equipment. They will be experienced and prepared, and they will not come back. Their family will report them missing. Searches will be conducted. The terrain will be blamed. The case will be closed. And the count will increase. 164, 165, 166. The valleys are patient. They have been waiting for 5 million years. They will wait 5 million more. I cannot stop the disappearances. I can only document them. I can only bear witness to the pattern. I can only hope that someday, someone will figure out what is actually happening. Maybe that person will read this. Maybe they will pick up where I left off. Maybe they will find the answers I could not find. Until then, the rain falls. The valleys wait. The island keeps its secrets. Kauai, the Garden Isle, the oldest of the main Hawaiian islands, the most beautiful place most visitors will ever see, the most dangerous place most visitors will never understand. 163 people missing and counting. The warnings are ancient. The patterns are real. The disappearances never stop. Be careful out there. The valleys are watching, and they are very, very patient. Let me tell you about one more thing before I go. The Hawaiians had a concept called Ao and Po. Ao was the realm of light, the world of the living, the daylight hours when humans were safe. Po was the realm of darkness, the world of spirits, the nighttime hours when other forces held sway. The boundary between Ao and Po was not fixed. In certain places, at certain times, the realms could overlap. A person walking in Ao could suddenly find themselves in Po, surrounded by forces they could not see, and dangers they could not understand. The old stories say that returning from Po to Ao was difficult. Some people never managed it. They wandered in the spirit realm forever, unable to find their way back to the world of light. I think about this when I think about the missing. Where are they now? Are they still in the valleys, their bodies hidden by vegetation and terrain? Are they at the bottom of cliffs, in caves, under waterfalls? Are they in the ocean, carried away by the same currents that carved the Na Pali coast, or are they somewhere else entirely? Somewhere we cannot reach, somewhere we cannot search, somewhere between Ao and Po, where the living cannot follow. I do not know. I will probably never know. But I think the Hawaiians understood something about these islands that we have forgotten. They lived with the knowledge that certain places were not entirely in our world. They accepted it. They worked around it. They survived. We refuse to accept it. We insist that the world operates according to rules we understand. We send search teams into valleys where search teams have failed before. We assume that if we just try hard enough, look carefully enough, we will find what we are looking for. The valleys do not care about our assumptions. They operate by older rules, rules that were in place before humans arrived on these islands, rules that will remain in place long after we are gone. Let me tell you about the trail this spring. In 2026, the pattern has already resumed. On March 27th, a 35-year-old Ohio visitor was rescued with a shoulder injury near Hanakapiai Beach. On April 4th, 3 visitors from Germany, California, and Canada were rescued with injuries after being trapped by inclement weather. On April 8th, a Tennessee visitor showed signs of heat exhaustion on the trail. On April 18th, a South Carolina visitor was rescued after becoming distressed during flooding. This is just the first 4 months of the year. By December, the total rescues will likely exceed 70 again. The helicopters will fly, the search teams will deploy, the costs will mount, and somewhere in those numbers, there will be the ones who were not rescued, the ones who were never found, the ones who add to the count of 163. The pattern continues. It has continued for longer than written records exist. It will continue for as long as people keep walking into those valleys. I cannot stop it. No one can stop it. All I can do is tell the stories, document the cases, bear witness to the pattern, and warn those who will listen. Let me tell you about the woman I met last year. I was on Kauai for research. I had spent the day interviewing rangers and reviewing records at the Department of Land and Natural Resources office. I was tired. I stopped at a restaurant in Lihue for dinner. An elderly Hawaiian woman was sitting alone at a nearby table. She saw me making notes, saw the folders of documents spread around my meal. She asked what I was researching. I told her. Missing persons, the Kalalau Trail, the patterns I had found. She nodded slowly. She said, "You are learning what we always knew." I asked her what she meant. She said, "The valleys take people. They always have. They always will." My grandmother told me. Her grandmother told her, all the way back. Everyone knows. I asked her why she thought it happened. She said, "The land has mana. The valleys have mana. Some places have more mana than people can survive. You walk into that mana, and it overwhelms you. It takes you somewhere else, somewhere you cannot come back from." I asked her if she believed people could be found if searchers knew where to look. She laughed, not unkindly, but as if I had said something naive. She said, "You cannot find them because they are not there anymore. Not in the way you understand there. They crossed over. They went into Po. The searchers look in Ao, in the daylight world, but the missing are not in the daylight world anymore." I asked her what she thought could be done. She said, "Respect the land. Ask permission before entering sacred places. Do not go into the valleys alone. Do not go at night. Do not go when you are angry or sad or disconnected from your spirit. Do not go if the land tells you not to go." I asked her how you know if the land is telling you not to go. She looked at me for a long moment. She said, "If you have to ask, you are not listening." I have thought about that conversation many times since. I have thought about what it means to listen to land, to ask permission from valleys, to hear warnings that are not spoken in words. I do not know how to do those things. I was not raised in that tradition. I do not have those skills. But I wonder if the people who disappear had a chance to hear. I wonder if the land warned them, and they did not know how to listen. I wonder if they felt something wrong and pushed forward anyway, because that is what our culture teaches us to do. Push forward. Ignore doubt. Trust your equipment and your training and your modern certainty. The valleys do not care about modern certainty. They speak an older language, and we have forgotten how to hear it. Let me tell you about the last case I researched. In February of 2026, just 2 months ago, a 31-year-old man from Colorado named James Mitchell arrived on Kauai. He was an avid hiker, a rock climber, a wilderness enthusiast. He had hiked trails all over the western United States. He thought he was prepared for anything. He had permits for the Kalalau Trail. He planned to hike in, camp for 2 nights, and hike out. A standard trip. Thousands of people do it every year. He checked in at the trailhead on February 18th. Rangers noted his permit and his equipment. They wished him a good hike. His return date was February 20th. When he did not return that day, no one was concerned. Hikers often extend their trips or get delayed by weather. By February 23rd, his family reported him missing. Search teams covered the trail from end to end. They checked every campsite. They searched the beaches and the valleys and the ridges. They found his tent at Hanakapiai Beach. His backpack was there, his food, his water filter, his sleeping bag, all there. His hiking boots were missing. He had apparently put them on and walked away from camp. He has not been found. The search continues. As of this recording, James Mitchell has been missing for 6 weeks. His family has flown to Kauai. They are offering rewards. They are hiring private searchers. They are doing everything they can. But the trail has yielded nothing. The valleys have given up nothing. The pattern has repeated once again. James Mitchell is number 164. Unless he is found, he will join the others. The ones who walked into the valleys and never came back. The ones whose names fill my files. The ones whose families still wait. I do not know what happened to James Mitchell. I do not know what happens to any of them. I only know that it keeps happening. Again and again and again. The valleys take people. They always have. They always will. Let me tell you how this ends. It does not end. That is the truth I have come to after 18 months of research. The disappearances did not start at some point in history. They will not stop at some point in the future. They are a feature of this landscape, as permanent as the cliffs and the waterfalls and the rain. The Hawaiians understood this. They built their culture around managing it. They survived. We do not understand it. We refuse to understand it. We keep sending people into the valleys and acting surprised when some of them do not come back. I cannot change that. One researcher cannot change the tourism industry, cannot change human nature, cannot change the eternal pull of beauty and adventure that draws people to dangerous places. All I can do is tell the stories, compile the data, sound the warnings, and hope that somewhere, someone is listening. If you are planning to visit Kauai, be careful. Hike with others. Stay on marked trails. Tell someone where you are going and when you expect to return. Carry emergency supplies. Pay attention to weather warnings. And listen to the land. If something feels wrong, turn back. If your instincts tell you not to proceed, do not proceed. If you sense that you are somewhere you should not be, leave. The valleys do not give warnings twice. If you know someone who has disappeared on Kauai, I am sorry. I know that nothing I have said provides comfort. I know that explanations do not bring closure. I know that understanding the pattern does not answer the question of what happened to your loved one. But know this, they are not forgotten. Their stories are part of this record now. Their names are counted among the missing. As long as people research these cases, as long as people ask questions, as long as people seek the truth, the missing are not forgotten. That is the best I can offer. It is not enough. It will never be enough, but it is something. If you have experienced something strange on Kauai, something you cannot explain, something that still troubles you, I want to hear from you. The more accounts we collect, the better we can understand what is happening. The more data we have, the closer we come to answers. Contact me through the channels listed in the description of this video. Tell me your story. Help me understand, because I do not understand yet. After everything I have learned, I still do not understand. I only know that something is happening in those valleys. Something real. something dangerous, something that has been happening for longer than anyone can remember. And I am not going to stop researching until I figure out what it is. Kauai, the Garden Isle. 164 people missing and counting. The rain falls. The valleys wait. The pattern continues. The oldest of the Hawaiian Islands. The most beautiful. The most dangerous. The most patient. They have been waiting for 5 million years. They will wait 5 million more. Be careful out there. The valleys are watching, and they never forget. Never. Let me tell you about the geology one more time, because the geology matters. The geology is not incidental to the disappearances. The geology is the foundation of everything that happens on this island. Kauai is 5 million years old. That makes it the oldest of the main Hawaiian islands by a significant margin. Oahu is approximately 3 million years old. Maui is approximately 1.3 million. The Big Island is still being born, still erupting, still growing. Kauai has had 5 million years to erode. 5 million years of rain and wind and wave. 5 million years for the sharp edges of new volcanic rock to soften into something older and stranger. The result is terrain that exists nowhere else on Earth. The Na Pali cliffs are not like other cliffs. They are not simple vertical drops. They are pleated, folded, carved into thousands of ridges and valleys and hanging canyons. The rock is not stable. It crumbles. It shifts. It falls away without warning. Waimea Canyon is not like other canyons. It was formed by catastrophic collapse as well as gradual erosion. The walls are layered with the evidence of ancient volcanic activity, but those layers are not uniform. They contain pockets and voids and unstable zones that can give way at any moment. The trails that cross this terrain are not permanent. They are carved into rock that is constantly changing. Rangers repair them constantly. Sections wash away in every major storm. What was a safe path last month may be a death trap today. And then there is the vegetation. The rain that falls on Kauai feeds the most aggressive plant growth in the Hawaiian Islands. The jungle does not creep. It explodes. Cut a path through the vegetation, and it will be overgrown within weeks. Stop maintaining a trail, and it will disappear within a year. This vegetation hides everything. Bodies, equipment, evidence. The jungle closes over whatever falls into it like water closing over a stone. Search teams have reported that they can walk within feet of remains and not see them. The green is that thick. The covering is that complete. When someone dies in the Na Pali backcountry, the jungle begins reclaiming them immediately. Within days, the body may be invisible from any distance. Within weeks, only bones may remain. Within months, even the bones begin to scatter. The terrain consumes evidence. The vegetation consumes remains. The rain washes away everything else. This is not supernatural. This is geology and biology operating as they have operated for 5 million years. But the effect is supernatural in its completeness. People enter this landscape and simply cease to exist. Not metaphorically, literally. Their bodies, their belongings, every trace of their presence is absorbed by the island. And we keep sending people into it anyway. Let me tell you about the statistics one more time. 163 people missing since 1952. That is the documented number. The actual number is certainly higher. Before 1952, records were incomplete. Before 1977, when the state park was established, permits were not required, and visitors were not counted. In the decades before that, during the hippie era, the counterculture era, the era when people came to Kalalau to disappear deliberately, how many also disappeared involuntarily? How many were lost and never reported? In the centuries before Western contact, when Hawaiians lived in these valleys, how many were taken by the land? The oral histories mention disappearances. The warnings exist because people vanished often enough to warrant warnings. The true count may be in the hundreds. It may be in the thousands. We will never know. But we know the pattern. We know the locations. We know the demographics. Young men traveling alone. The Na Pali corridor. The Kauai and Waimea region, the trails around Mount Waialeale, the same places, over and over again, and a concentration that exceeds statistical expectations by a factor of 4. That number comes from an internal memorandum I obtained through my FOIA requests. It was written in 1993. The analysis found that the rate of disappearances in the Hanakapiai corridor was 4 times higher than would be expected based on visitor numbers and comparable wilderness areas. 4 times higher. Something about that specific landscape creates additional risk beyond the obvious dangers of terrain and weather. Something about those specific valleys takes more people than they should. The memorandum recommended further study. As far as I can determine, no study was ever conducted. The pattern was identified. The anomaly was documented. And then nothing was done. I do not know why. Budget constraints, political considerations, the impossibility of studying something that cannot be explained. Or perhaps someone understood that some questions are better left unasked. Let me tell you about the silence. This is something that multiple people have described to me. The silence of the deep valleys. It should not be silent. The wind blows constantly in the Nepali region. Birds call. Insects buzz. Waterfalls roar in the distance. The ocean crashes against the cliffs below. But hikers report moments of absolute silence. Moments when all sound stops. Moments when the world seems to hold its breath. One hiker described it like this. I was walking the trail near Hanakapiai. Normal day, clear weather, plenty of other hikers around. And then suddenly there was nothing. No wind, no birds, no sound of water, no sound of footsteps. Just silence. Complete and total silence. It lasted maybe 30 seconds. And then everything came back. The sounds returned. The world started moving again. But for those 30 seconds, I was somewhere else. I was in a place where sound did not exist. Another hiker described it differently. It felt like the valley was paying attention, like something had noticed me, and everything got very quiet, so it could listen. I do not know what these experiences mean. I do not know if they are related to the disappearances or if they are simply artifacts of the unusual acoustic environment. But I know that multiple people have described them independently. People who did not know each other. People who were in different locations on different days. Something happens in those valleys that creates moments of silence. Moments when the normal world withdraws and something else takes its place. Maybe it is natural. Atmospheric conditions. Acoustic phenomena. The way sound travels in narrow valleys with high walls. Maybe it is something else. Let me tell you about the warning one last time. The ancient Hawaiians survived on these islands for more than 1,000 years before Western contact. They did not have GPS devices or satellite phones or rescue helicopters. They did not have weather forecasts or trail maps or emergency services. They survived because they respected the land. They survived because they listened to the warnings. They survived because they understood that certain places were not safe for humans. They had protocols. Ask permission before entering a new valley. Make offerings at the appropriate shrines. Do not travel at night. Do not travel alone. Do not enter places that feel wrong. These protocols were not superstition. They were survival strategies developed over centuries of experience. They encoded real knowledge about real dangers. We have abandoned those protocols. We have replaced them with equipment and technology, and the belief that we can go anywhere if we are prepared enough. The valleys do not care about our equipment. The valleys do not care about our technology. The valleys do not care about our preparation. The valleys have been there for 5 million years. They have been taking people for as long as people have walked their trails. They will continue taking people for as long as people continue to come. I cannot stop the disappearances. I can only document them. I can only warn those who will listen. Be careful on Kauai. Respect the land. Listen to the old warnings even if you do not believe in spirits. Because something is happening in those valleys. Something real. Something dangerous. And the pattern shows no signs of stopping. This is the end of my research. This is everything I have learned. 163 people missing. 1 island. 70 years of records. The rain falls. The valleys wait. The disappearances never stop. Kauai, the Garden Isle, the oldest Hawaiian island, the most beautiful, the most dangerous, the most patient. Be careful out there. The valleys are watching, and they are very, very hungry. One more thing. I want to tell you about what happens after. After someone vanishes on Kauai, their family enters a limbo that never ends. They fly to the island. They meet with police. They join search teams. They put up flyers in every business that will accept them. They offer rewards. They plead with media outlets for coverage. They walk the same trails their loved one walked, hoping to find something the professionals missed. They find nothing. The search is suspended. Active becomes inactive. Open becomes cold. The case files are archived. The family goes home, but they do not move on. How can you move on when you do not know what happened? How can you grieve when there is no body to bury? How can you find closure when every answer is a question? Some families return to Kauai year after year. They hike the trails again. They talk to rangers again. They retrace the steps again. Maybe this time they will find something. Maybe this time the island will give up its secrets. It never does. Some families hire private investigators, professional searchers who specialize in wilderness cases, psychics and mediums and dowsers, and anyone who claims to be able to find the unfindable. They find nothing. Some families simply wait. They keep the case open in their hearts, even when the police have closed it. They jump at every phone call. They search every news story for any mention of unidentified remains. They live in permanent suspension, neither grieving nor hoping, just waiting. The waiting never ends. I have spoken to dozens of families in my research. Parents who lost children, siblings who lost brothers and sisters, spouses who lost partners, children who lost parents. None of them have found peace. None of them have found closure. None of them have found answers. The island takes people, and then it keeps them forever. That is the cruelest part of this pattern. The disappearances do not just take the missing. They take the families too. They take the years of waiting. They take the hope that erodes into despair. They take the normalcy that never returns. 163 people missing means 163 families destroyed. Thousands of people left behind to wonder, to wait, to never know. I think about them when I research these cases. I think about the weight they carry. I think about the questions that wake them at 3 in the morning. I think about the anniversaries that bring fresh pain year after year. They deserve answers. They will probably never get them, but they deserve to know that someone is still asking the questions. Someone is still documenting the pattern. Someone is still bearing witness to what happened to their loved ones. That is why I do this research. That is why I make these recordings. That is why I refuse to let these cases fade into obscurity. Because the missing deserve to be remembered, and the families deserve to know that someone cares. If you are one of those families, I am sorry. I am sorry for your loss. I am sorry for your pain. I am sorry that I cannot give you the answers you need. But know this, your loved one is not forgotten. Their story is part of this record now. As long as people watch this video, as long as people research these cases, as long as people ask questions about what happens on Kauai, the missing are remembered. That is not enough. It will never be enough, but it is something. The Garden Isle. 163 people missing. 163 families waiting. The rain falls. The valleys take. The pattern continues. Forever. And one final thought. I began this research believing that every mystery has an explanation, that every pattern has a cause, that science and investigation could unlock any secret. I no longer believe that. Some mysteries are not meant to be solved. Some patterns do not have causes we can understand. Some places operate by rules we cannot comprehend. Kauai is one of those places. The island is 5 million years old. It was ancient before humans evolved. It was ancient before mammals dominated the earth. It was ancient when dinosaurs still walked the continents. What right do we have to think we understand it? What arrogance to believe that our 100 years of science can explain 5 million years of geological and biological processes. The Hawaiians did not try to explain. They observed. They respected. They survived. Maybe that is the best we can do. Maybe the valleys will never give up their secrets. Maybe the disappearances will never be explained. Maybe all we can do is bear witness, document, remember, and warn. So consider this your warning. Kauai is beautiful. Kauai is dangerous. Kauai is patient. If you go there, respect the land. Ask permission. Listen to the old warnings. And if the valley tells you to leave, leave. Do not wait. Do not doubt. Do not push forward. Leave. Because the valleys are watching. The valleys are waiting. And they have been waiting for a very, very long time. End of recording. Remember the names: Jesse Pinegar, Daniel Marks, Alex Gum, Samuel Martinez, Kevin Dalton, Katherine Walsh, Michael Brennan, Thomas Riley, Margaret Chen, James Mitchell, and all the others whose names I could not find, whose cases were closed before anyone thought to document them, whose families gave up hope before anyone knew to ask questions. 163 names, 163 stories, 163 people who walked into the valleys of Kauai and never walked out. The sign at Hanakapiai Beach counts the drowned, but no one counts the vanished. No one keeps a tally of the missing. No one scratches marks into wood for the ones who simply ceased to exist. I have tried to count them. I have tried to name them. I have tried to remember. Because someone has to. The island will not remember. The valleys will not remember. The rain that falls and falls and falls will wash away all traces of their passage. But we can remember. We can say their names. We can tell their stories. We can bear witness to the pattern that continues. Jesse Pinegar, Daniel Marks, Alex Gum, Samuel Martinez, and all the rest. They are not forgotten. They will never be forgotten. This has been Echo 7. You found the signal in the static. You heard what others refused to hear. What you do with it now is your choice. The Garden Isle. 164 people missing. The oldest island. The most beautiful. The most dangerous. The most patient. The rain falls. It has fallen for 5 million years. It will fall for 5 million more. The valleys take. They have taken since before humans walked these islands. They will continue taking long after we are gone. The pattern continues. It does not pause. It does not stop. It simply waits for the next person to walk into the wrong valley at the wrong time. The signal ends here, but the valleys never sleep. Never.